So, what happens when two therapists come together and stop taking notes and actually start talking about the things that you find yourself scrolling through and reading about? Let's find out. Hey, Hannah, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. How are you, Natalie?
Doing good, yeah, doing really good actually. It's been a good day. I am so
Good.
happy to be back here today. And this one was actually when we did this last time, it was my favorite video. I just loved just being able to chat about some random things that we just found ourselves reading and finding and just looking up. And so I found two things that I'm super excited to chat about with you and get your thoughts on. One of them in particular, I was just laughing when I stumbled it. So I'm really excited to share them with you. And I'm really happy to hear that you found some things too. So looking forward to that as well. So
Yeah, me too.
I thought that maybe you can start.
Yeah, let's do it. Well, the first one is I feel like a hot topic when I am talking to clients, but I feel like a lot of people agree with it too, but not this stance. So I don't know if you've heard, um, in 2023, someone's filed a lawsuit against Meta and Instagram for the addictive qualities in it or the addictive characteristics of social media. So recently, the Instagram chief says social media is not clinically addictive in a landmark trial. So this is in the lawsuit, and they did a trial to find out if it is actually clinically addictive. So anyway, I feel like I talk about this with clients all the time, like
Hmm.
social media, scrolling. I mean, you even mentioned it in the intro,
Yes. Yes.
scrolling. So, yeah, what do you think about social media and its
Oh.
characteristics?
Wow, that's really interesting. I actually did not know that there was a lawsuit. So, do you know the details of the lawsuit? Do you happen to know or no?
Yeah, so it says a little bit in this article. A 20-year-old California woman, she started the lawsuit and she's suing YouTube, TikTok, Snapchat, and Meta, which also owns Facebook. And she accused them of engineering their apps to create compulsive use, leading to body dysmorphia, anxiety, and depression.
Interesting. I wonder, how some there are lawsuits, you'll get an email in your inbox or you'll get like a letter in the mail and they're like, if you use this product during this like time frame or you purchase this during this time frame, like join in. I'm shocked that not a lot of people joined in on this when that was happening, but I wonder what the outcome of this was. Do you happen to know if she won or not?
I think it's still going.
It's still going.
Yeah, that's why they
Hmm.
ran this trial or like research experiment
Mhm.
to see if it is actually addictive because they're trying to say it's like um cigarettes or like big tobacco and gambling. That's like
Mhm.
the lawyer's argument. I don't know if and I don't know too much details on it, but like several years ago, maybe in the 90s or early 2000s, a large group of parents sued Big Tobacco for the way they advertise. So they're trying to do a similar one to that. And it's not like a class action lawsuit like you're talking about, I
There
don't
we go.
think.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's a lot of parents have joined because of how
Mm.
like kids have, had mental health issues or it led
Mhm.
to suicidal ideation. So they're really going after them. And I guess it's a tough one because it's such a big company. Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. My answer is going to be, and then I want to hear your thoughts. My answer is going to be the answer that most of us hate getting when we go and seek like feedback from a provider or anyone that we're trying to, I guess, get advice from if we're finding ourselves faced with something. And the feedback is usually it depends, or like every case is very specific. But I think there's so many factors that play a part when we look at something like this, and specifically we're talking about addiction. So I think age of onset. So like when somebody begins to use whatever it is that we're talking about, whether it's a substance or In this case, we're talking about platforms. So I think like the age of the person, why that matters, I think their developmental level. And so, how susceptible they would be to whatever they're being exposed to at that point in time. And the amount of exposure, so how much they're using, what they had been exposed to prior. And so their level of vulnerability at the time of exposure, their level of stress at the time of exposure. So I think that, yeah, I think that there are so many factors that are involved that it makes it a little difficult to say whether or not this is the thing that is the main contributing factor as to whether or not we have an addiction on our hands, or if it was a contributing factor. So, yeah, that's it. That's a tough one. But I do think that it probably will lead to what we see now, which is a warning of some sort, maybe being a disclaimer, possibly being written somewhere in order to kind of provide some kind of warning before someone begins to kind of log into a platform or use whatever, we're talking about here, very similar to like you were mentioning, like the cigarette boxes and things like that. But yeah, very interesting. I had not heard about this. What are your thoughts on it?
I have a very similar view. I think it depends on the person and their
Mm,
personality. But I was also thinking about how psychology is used in everything. Like marketing, if you think about ads that people started making ads long, long ago and they appeal to like your emotional side, they use celebrities to like people use psychology for everything. Even if you think about the colors used for McDonald's, they use red and yellow, which are really harsh colors. They don't want you to sit and stay for a while. But companies like Starbucks do like greens and browns and earthy colors and comfortable chairs because they want you to stay and keep buying coffee. So things like that are meant to manipulate us, and social media is going to do the same thing. So if they're using psychological techniques just like everybody else is, it's our job to kind of be a little bit more aware of that
mhm,
and limit our usage depending
mhm,
on how we use it.
mhm. Yes, yeah. So funny you mentioned marketing. So I'm gonna go off on a small tangent. I'm just really quickly. I this morning on social media I was scrolling and I happened to see, so they were talking about the power of marketing, and this guy, awesome, like, video, he definitely got his point across. He took Pepsi, so he took the company Pepsi and he rebranded it, did not at all lie about the ingredients, but just reframed everything and rebranded the can and the messaging. And so he said the main ingredient in Pepsi currently, it just happens to be carbonated water. And so he took the idea of water and hydration and rebranded Pepsi to say that it was, yeah, it was just a hydrated drink. And it was just, I mean, it just blows your mind, but it speaks to like what you are saying here, where they're doing their jobs to market, a product at social media, and those platforms is doing their job to provide you content and information and knowledge. And then, I guess what we're talking about here is like, at what point is it our jobs to kind of, yeah, to hold personal responsibility and accountability to filter through and make sure that we're doing our research and due diligence to educate ourselves on like what's coming through. I think that it just gets a little bit blurry, right? When we're talking about minors and
Yes.
parenting, and then we're talking about adults, but even that is a little bit gray, especially if we have an adult that has been exposed to these platforms early on. And so that's where we get into this like dependency kind of conversation. Like, have they already started becoming a bit dependent on using these platforms? And so they bring it into their adulthood. So does it make it difficult then for them to set those boundaries and to become personally responsible to say no once they enter their adulthood? So Yeah, it gets a little bit messy and a bit gray there for sure. But yeah, interesting topic. I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. Very cool. Yeah, I'm gonna have to look it up. Look it up for sure. So I happened to stumble upon this one article, and it was in the New York Times, and so I don't know. Do you happen to love flying or no? Are you someone
Do
that
love flying.
loves? Me
Yeah.
too. Me too. I love the experience, but I know a lot of people don't, especially people that we happen to talk to sometimes. They have a fear of flying, and there's a lot of parts of that experience that people just happen to not really enjoy. But so in this article, they were talking about those who actually love the parts of flying that most people tend to not like. So they were talking about the turbulence, the food, and the middle seat. And then and they were saying why. And so it was interesting. So but the first part, the turbulence. So they said this person was talking about how their mother had presented turbulence and described the science behind it, and how turbulence is actually it's very similar to waves in the ocean, and how all it is just fluidity essentially. And so it's a natural part of the process. So when we're like out in the water, yes, it doesn't feel great sometimes, right? Like especially like if you're on a boat or on a cruise, sometimes people get a little bit queasy, but we don't think like, oh no, like what's happening? We kind of naturally we're like, oh, it's just, a normal part of being out here. The waters are moving and it's just a wave, right? And so it's very similar when you're on an airplane, what we happen to call turbulence, for the most part, not the severe, kind of like movements, but is very similar. It's just the fluidity of being up there in the air. Now, for whatever reason, we don't happen to see it that way or perceive it that way, but it is. It's just a natural part of flying. And so he said, when I understood the science behind it, I realized, wait a minute, it's very similar to just being out in the water and experiencing, the ripples of the water and the waves, and just kind of going along with it. And so I thought that was very interesting, and how like just a
Yeah.
simple reframing and understanding of it can change someone's complete experience. So what are your thoughts on that? And then I'll get into the middle seat.
Yeah, I was curious about the middle seat, but, yeah. So I feel like that would be extremely helpful working with clients. I think after prolonged times of being afraid of flying, it might be difficult to just, like, make it click.
Mhm.
The practice of reframing that, I feel like would be really helpful for clients that are afraid of flying because, yeah, a lot of people just like to float in the ocean and let the
Yeah,
waves, carry them and just relax. So if you think about it that way, it's just currents in the air and
exactly.
yeah,
Exactly. Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I was like, I like that. Very interesting. Yeah. The middle C I thought was like pretty brilliant. Pretty brilliant. So I'm not a middle seater. Where do you prefer to sit? I'm just curious.
The window.
Same.
Okay,
Yeah,
yeah.
same. Yeah, same here. So this person said he loves the middle seat because he realizes that the middle seater controls that whole is the controller. So they control that whole section. They control whether everyone stays awake or everyone sleeps, whether people connect or they don't. And
Whoa.
so I was like, that's pretty interesting, which is true because the middle person, they can strike up the conversations with everyone, or, they can just pop in their earbuds and it's like, don't talk to me. And then it makes it hard for them to communicate, right?
Yeah.
But as the middle person, you can kind of like really be in control of that whole communication between that section. And so he was like, yeah, I control the temperature of that section, and whether we're communicating or we're not communicating. And I was like,
Wow.
I like that. Yeah, very interesting.
Yeah, that's a good one. Are you the type of person on a flight that would want to start up a conversation?
No, not at all.
Neither. Me neither.
But what do you do when
Oh,
you're on a plane? What do you prefer to do?
I read a book. I
Yeah.
don't wanna talk to anybody.
Yeah, yeah, but I thought that was I was like, "That's
Yeah, that's a
pretty
good one.
smart." Mhm, pretty smart, yeah.
Yeah.
And then the 3rd one was this, so, the airplane food, which I, nowadays, I don't know what plane he's flying on because they rarely get food. I
I
don't know.
know. Yeah, unless you're going
I'm like, "What
international.
food?" Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, exactly. Yeah, probably international. And so he said, the food's not always great, right? And so this person said the way they look at it is, I only get to experience this specific food, here in this, like, experience. And so that's how they kinda see it, is like, I don't get to experience this food anywhere else but here, so I'm going to enjoy it, was the perspective. So I thought that was really interesting. And so I just, for me, what stood out was just how powerful reframing can be when you are, we're talking about flying, and for some people, flying is inevitable. You can't really avoid it. And so, especially for situations that are unavoidable, there's power in reframing where, it can have an overall pretty strong effect on how you actually walk through and experience that situation that is unavoidable, that you have to get through the other side. And so, might as well have some kind of tool tucked away in your back pocket that might be able to help you get through it. So I thought that article was pretty
Yeah.
helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good one.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I mean, it's kind of similar to reframing, but the Olympics are going on, and
mm,
there are in the New York Times also, they did a, interview with the psychologist for the Olympians, the US
mhm.
Olympians, and they listed 5 sleep habits to steal from the Olympians because they have difficulty sleeping over there. One, the anticipation of their competition the next day, and also they usually have very tight sleeping quarters with very uncomfortable beds. So, they have this psychologist to kinda help them on their way over there, and I felt like these are pretty common, but also not always what I recommend to my clients, like, I just haven't thought of it. So the first one is if you're sleeping somewhere new, make the place your own. So they had a couple examples, and one was, like, white noise. 2 was, like, bringing your pillow or a humidifier, whatever you use at home. But yeah, I was wondering, like, when you travel, do you do that? Do you make it, like,
Uh-huh.
feel like home?
That's really interesting. I love that. I love that concept. No, I don't actually. I've never thought about it. I know people who do. And what's so interesting is that I've never seen it through the lens of them making the space their own. I've always looked at it through the lens of traveling with like too many things. I
Yeah.
think for me, I try to be more of like a minimalist when I travel. And so I've always looked at it like, why carry so many things with you? This yeah, it's interesting. I'm looking at it through a completely different lens today. So no, I can see how it brings comfort and it brings a sense of normalcy and familiarity and yeah, and it makes a lot of sense. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I've never thought about it that way at all.
But yeah, I thought about it and I was like, I guess there are a couple things, like maybe my eye mask that I use when I have migraines
Huh?
I could bring with me because I don't know.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, I thought that was pretty interesting. Then there's one developing a calming evening routine, which I feel like I talk about all the time with clients. But then waking up at a consistent time. I know.
I talk to clients about this all because they recommend that your weekdays and your weekends should look exactly the same when it comes to your sleep schedule, and because it affects your circadian rhythm otherwise. And a lot of times people don't realize that your circadian rhythm also impacts your hormones, like what hormones are secreted, and so which then impacts a lot of things, including your overall mood. And so we might think, oh, it's just sleep. I get to stay up a little bit later. at night on the weekends because I just want to enjoy my time. But and then we're wondering, well, why am I experiencing dips in my mood? And we're not realizing it has a lot to do with like something as simple as that.
Kind of on a side note, I was scrolling through social media the other night and I
Mhm.
saw this video. It was 6 minutes long, like I guess the longest you can do. And it was about this girl, like she was filming her roommate's nighttime routine. And it was
Mm.
the same exact routine every night, but it was 3 hours long. And she
Wow.
clearly had OCD and it said like she was medicated. But the thoughts around like how particular everything was, I feel like in some ways that would be healthy to create your nighttime routine, like a nice calming one, and then schedule around it. But that was
Mhm.
to the extreme. It was like, I can't imagine spending 3 hours every night doing these steps religiously. But I feel like in moderation, it would be helpful to
Mhm.
like set your routine and then schedule life around it. But it's
Mhm.
not always
Mhm.
possible.
No, no, but that's very interesting. Yeah, I agree. I think that they say like having a good like morning routine, a good nighttime routine, is healthy, especially the nighttime because you get to eliminate the electronics, earlier on, and then it allows you to like slowly transition yourself into getting ready for your body to get ready for like nighttime. But yeah, that probably, is a bit stressful, I'm sure, for, the person that you were watching that video, because I'm sure any little thing that's off from that routine, might cause a little bit of stress. But the idea behind it, I'm sure, is great to be able to incorporate into like a typical evening. Yeah, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, very interesting. So this was the other one that I wanted to share with you. So it's funny enough, it has to do with sleeping. So it says, "Is it bad to snooze your alarm?" So what are your thoughts? What do you think?
I think it is, but I do it
Mhm. You
for
do
a
do
long
it.
time. I snooze a
Huh.
lot.
I'm learning a lot about you, Hannah.
Yeah, do you snooze?
Okay. I don't. No, I do.
Really?
No, I
Okay.
am one of those that okay, how many alarms do you set? Do you set multiple alarms?
I have a physical alarm clock, and I got this on the purpose because I thought it would be helpful, but it does like a bring you out of REM sleep alarm. So it's like a nice,
Oh, I love that.
soothing, calm, like just little birds chirping or whatever. And then about 5 minutes later, it'll do like the actual alarm. And then I set like 3 or 4 on my phone.
Uh,
It's not good. Not good.
okay, yeah. No, I only set one, yeah, and no, I
Yeah.
don't. I'm the type that gets up, but it's probably because I tend to be a little bit anxious prone.
Mm,
So, like, in my mind, like, I won't allow myself to fall back asleep because I think, because my mind will just worry that I'll fall asleep and then not get up. So that's
yeah,
why.
that's fair. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's interesting when I first saw when I first saw the title, "Is it bad to snooze your alarm?" My thought was, I thought of REM sleep. And so I was like, yeah, it's bad to snooze your alarm because you're going to like enter right back into sleep. And then you might start another cycle of REM sleep and then you're going to interrupt it. Right. And it says the answer may depend on why you're doing it in the first place. So, research actually shows, so based off of this article, it was saying that research shows that there wasn't that big of a difference with people that didn't snooze their alarm and then people that did snooze their alarm but didn't have that big of a sleeping problem. The problem lies with people that do snooze their alarm but do have a bit of a sleeping problem. And there were tests that they ran in order to like figure all of this out. So all of the science stuff is in the article, but they were saying that if you do have a sleeping problem, meaning like your schedule fluctuates a lot, you wake up a lot throughout the night. You find that you snooze your alarm a few times, and then when you do wake up, you feel super groggy or you feel like you're in a really bad mood, and like those kinds of things, then yes, snoozing your alarm is a bad idea. But they were saying if you do snooze your alarm, but for the most part, you go to sleep fine, you wake up feeling okay, it's not affecting your productivity or anything like that. It actually, research shows that it's actually not that big of a deal for you. So, yeah, I thought that was really interesting. All right, so I think
Yeah.
you have one more, right?
Yes, I have one more. Yeah, and do you drink coffee?
Yes. Oh gosh, I'm afraid. I'm afraid of what you're gonna say.
No, I feel like this is very validating for all the coffee drinkers, but
Okay,
it's
here we go.
yes, a recent study came out. I mean, it's not recent. They were doing it over the span of, I think, 42 years. But 2 to 3 cups of coffee a day may reduce dementia risk. So, yeah, they found out, they studied over 132,000 people. So it's not a small study. And they had all different genetics. They tested all their health risks, all their like having the gene for Alzheimer's or dementia. They didn't discriminate against different types of dementia, and they also found out that tea can help too. So
Mm,
and it's not a direct causation, like, it's not gonna keep you from having dementia, but there's some sort of correlation.
that's very
Exactly.
interesting. Yeah. So you said 2 to
Yeah.
3.
2 to 3, you can do green tea, Earl Grey, coffee, just not decaf. So yeah,
Mm,
I guess,
I'll take it.
that kinda feeds into my coffee habit.
Yes, yeah, I'll definitely take it. A question I would have is I wonder if it changes if you have, like, over 3 cups of coffee, if that then has, like, the opposite effect or something, so that would be interesting to
Wonder.
find out. Mhm,
And I mean, tea has different amounts of caffeine than coffee does.
mhm.
So,
You're right about that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Mhm,
don't know what that would look like either. But yeah, I definitely thought that was interesting, and that's a good point too. I also wonder if like the stuff you put in your coffee, like if you do it really sugary coffee, I'm sure they can't be good over time for your heart health
mhm,
or, other stuff like
mhm.
that. But it doesn't seem like they tested for that. But yeah.
No, yeah. So it seems like at the end of this, the question that still remains is how big of a cup of coffee are we talking about?
That's a very
That is
good
the question.
question. Well, because I right here, I've got my jumbo mug.
There we go. That counts as one. That counts as one.
Yes.
Well, this has been
Goodness.
fun as always. Yeah, those were
Yes.
awesome. That was great. Yeah, I love it. I love this time. So, well, thank you guys so much for joining us on the reflection room. And until next time, be honest with yourself and keep reflecting.